Claimed people's skills during his first spell at Chelsea, getting the likes of Lampard to rise even higher because he filled them full of self-belief. Now, Mourinho is still demanding, but without charisma and understanding of how to conjure the best out of players that once made him special.
According to the well-versed in football management, having done it himself, Henry Winter. Come on, Jim, look.
And post-match, it was put to him that in the past, holding on to a lead is what you've been so good at doing. Mourinho replied, same coach, different players. Which seemed to see him almost casually throw his players under a bus. And now, as a result of that, Sammy Mobile in the Mail this morning is saying Tottenham players were enraged by Mourinho's comments following Sunday's draw at Newcastle.
Which ones?
Because Mourinho was asked why his Spurs side were so vulnerable late on in games when he is a manager whose teams usually have hung on to slender leads. Same coach, different players. And the answer apparently sparked huge irritation amongst members of the squad who feel the manager threw them under the bus to protect himself from criticism. Now, Henry in the Times, and I don't think he's wrong here, Simon, he's giving it balance and he's treating it absolutely right. And who am I to tell Henry Winter, of all people, how to go about his job? Henry says he possessed Mourinho, acclaimed people's skills during his first spell at Chelsea, getting the likes of Lampard to rise even higher because he filled them full of self-belief. Now, Mourinho is still demanding, but without charisma and understanding of how to conjure the best out of players that once made him special.
According to the well-versed in football management, having done it himself, Henry Winter. Come on, Jim, look.
Well, not just Henry, Sammy Botbot, Matt Law.
Fine, look.
And we all saw it for
first and foremost, which Spurs are we
proper journalists?
Which Spurs players are we talking about? The ones that may be marginalised by Mourinho, or the ones that are in the first team? We don't know. We've got to be as ambiguous as Meghan Markle's observations. So let's look at the reality of what's being alleged of Mourinho. Someone asks him a question, okay? He gives a factual answer. It's a factual answer.
A factual answer. Same coach, different players.
Well, that's factual, isn't it? What happens, Jose? What happens to teams that used to be very good at defending a lead? Same coach, fact. Different players, fact. You want to turn that into some sinister, macabre, portentous observation of throwing his players under the bus. The same players, by the way, that he defends quite regularly, but that doesn't get written about in quite the same flourishing
absolute
style.
Nonsense. How can you prove that?
Because I've seen the articles.
That's absolute nonsense.
I've seen these headlines. We don't see the headlines saying Spurs delight when Mourinho's praising his players. And the same players, by the way, that were an absolute disgrace against Dinamo Zagreb suddenly now are furious because their coach has made a factual observation. A bunch of perennial losers that haven't won anything, that have been knocked out of FA Cup semi-finals regularly, that have got to Champions League finals and stunk the tournament final out, that should have won the league when Leicester City won it. Maybe, just maybe, there should have been a change. I'm not suggesting that this constant negative reinforcement at times of points from Mourinho is the right way to go, but to suggest that Mourinho, who has won something at every single club... Hold on, but it's a matter of fact. You don't like that matter of fact, but it's a matter of fact. He's been at... No, but he has won something at every single club. Every single club.
Break it down to this.
He's gone to Tottenham, and Tottenham aren't good enough.
Why does Mourinho protect his own reputation when he should be protecting his players?
But that's an assumption.
And again, no one's saying that he's a busted
That's an assumption.
The fact
they are.
No, they're not.
He's not in his article.
Henry Winter says in his article, all this calling out of players seems unnecessary and self-defeating. Why do it? Why do it? Mourinho's still a good manager.
But he hasn't,
the busted flush narrative is nonsense.
He hasn't called out his players. He was asked he was asked a question.
Same coach, different players.
Well, it's a fact, isn't it?
Well, why are they up in arms about it?
Who says they are? Some snot-gobbling journalist that turns around and says that maybe it's peripheral players that aren't in the team. You know the facts that players don't like it when they're not being picked, that they've got an agenda to serve out. Who are these players that we're talking about? Won't name them because they can't name their sources.
So the Daily Mail's got it wrong, the Times has got it wrong.
No, they've got their view.
The Telegraph has got it wrong.
Hold on. They've got a view. The alternative side of that argument is, have they got it right? Well, okay, is that the binary assumption then?
Well, they haven't made it up.
Well, have they got it right?
But they haven't made it up.
Is Mourinho's style of management divisive, disingenuous, and all about himself, or has it won him And the Frank Lampard
That's
example,
the Manchester
Frank
United
Lampard
fans.
example is just crap, because Frank Lampard was an honest player that gave his best in every single game and was entitled to the narrative of being built up.
Why do you defend Mourinho like this
Spurs
every
players,
time?
because it's a media bias about the reality of what Mourinho does and doesn't do.
Media bias.
Do I agree?
Why would the media be even remotely interested in having an agenda against Mourinho?
Because Mourinho divides opinions. Mourinho doesn't say...
That's not answering the question.
It is.
Why have they got it in for Mourinho, in other words?
Because Mourinho...
In your view?
Because Mourinho holds people to account. Mourinho does things differently. He doesn't play the game nicely
Should
at
he hold
times.
himself to account?
Well, yes.
After the 2-2 draw at Newcastle?
Of course he does.
So why didn't he?
But the fact of the matter is...
why didn't he?
Hold on, Jim. He was asked a question about something that he was synonymous with, which is teams that don't give up leads. How was he supposed to ask the question? By the way, why do our national sides never win anything? Why do we never win anything? Because maybe the character the media want is people constantly giving these players an excuse, constantly giving them no backbone, or only being able to praise. Might explain why the only reason we actually win anything in Europe is because we've got a boatload of foreign players inside our leagues that aren't polluted by the institutional thinking of English players.
Would it not
How
be
about
better
that?
if Mourinho assumes as much responsibility as his players for that 2-2 draw at St James's Park?
So when they stank the place out against Dynamo Zagreb and he apologised on behalf of himself and the players, was that him taking responsibility, or was
we
it?
saw what he did, Simon. We saw what he did out
So you
in,
can't.
out in Serbia.
Your refusal.
He immediately went straight. He went
So
in Croatia. He immediately went into the other dressing room to show magnanimously.
So when he talks,
you guys deserve it.
So when he talks about. And I'm not defending Mourinho here, because I think lots of things he does wrong.
You're not defending him. Sorry, say that again.
I'm providing a balanced argument, which is not what's required here. Right? So when Mourinho,
do you accept he's throwing his players under a bus?
No, I don't. When I hear Mourinho praising his players, as I have done this season, do I hear this media furore saying, "Look at Mourinho praising his players"? No, I do not. It's accepted as a given. When he comes out and he says something that the media decides is throwing his players under the bus, wallop, crash, like a ton of bricks. Mourinho's divisive, he's disingenuous, he doesn't do what Klopp does, he doesn't do what Guardiola does, he doesn't do this. Arteta was throwing his players under the bus on Saturday. He wasn't pulling back on what his players said. Don't do nonsense.
You know, with Mourinho, this is a different...
It's media bias.
It's a different case.
No, it's not.
It's
media bias based upon his personality.
There's a pattern that appears.
It's media bias.
And the pattern is emerging. The pattern is emerging.
What pattern? Of the media consistently highlighting the negative
Same
and
coach,
never promoting the positive.
different players.
This team, it's a fact.
So in other words, what does that phrase mean? Same coach, different players. In other words,
Fact.
Same coach. I'm Mourinho.
Yeah.
I'm as good as I always was.
Yeah.
Just different players.
Correct. These players aren't receiving my message. Clearly they're not.
So whose fault is
because
that?
In part his, in part the players. So
Right.
are you suggesting that by the very nature of everything he says excludes himself from any responsibility? Because I don't get that impression. And by the way, I'm not a Mourinho acolyte. I thought at times at Man United he was dark and divisive, staying in a hotel which suited him. He didn't want to be in Manchester. He wanted to be in London. I get all that, but to just pile on and suggest that there is a way of doing things and Mourinho has got it wrong. People talk about the right to be able to manage is based upon your historic achievements. You cannot beat this guy's achievements. He's won, and I tell you something as well. I would not be surprised if they beat Man City in that League Cup final. I would not. I wouldn't project it or suggest.
I wonder if they lose badly, who will cop for it?
Well, we'll see when it happens, won't we? But the point is if they beat Man City, if Spurs, who are now sixth in the league, won the League Cup, what would you say then?
Listen, it's all hypothetical.
In spite of Mourinho.
In a heated discussion, Simon Jordan staunchly defended José Mourinho against criticisms from the media and sports journalist Henry Winter. Jim White, aligning with the media's perspective, critiqued Mourinho's recent performances. However, Jordan countered by emphasizing Mourinho's impressive track record and accomplishments in football. He accused the media of being overly harsh and dismissive of Mourinho's achievements, arguing that his history of success and tactical brilliance should earn him more respect and recognition, despite recent setbacks.